the noise.
No love, no feelings. I choke on the air I'm breathing. I'm done, I'm healing. Ain't nobody stopping the bleeding. Death with demons on both sides. Can't think, no angel left inside. Chained to the static in my mind, and I can't hide. This rage I just can't escape. Screaming at my face so loud I can't hear my voice. Breaking through my mistakes, free fall into grace. I'm not insane. It's time to kill the noise.
The noise.
Let's burn the devil, baby. Let's burn him.
Screaming, I live through the pain for a reason. My God,
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Indian Nation Station pregame show. I'm your host, the bald-headed goat, according to Paul Hines, AJ Ganger, and as always, the one and only Brian Gillespie. Brian, it is a huge game tonight. 6-1 Tipp City coming in to take on our 7-0 Piqua Indians. It's also homecoming. It's also Bill Neese night at the stadium. A lot of things going on with homecoming coming up, the game, the parade that happened last night, everything. It's just an exciting atmosphere.
You know what? It's interesting. This whole season's kind of been building towards this, but it's been a lot of easy wins, a lot of blowout victories. Tonight, we finally really get a measuring stick for where we're headed this year at Piqua.
I agree with you 100%. You know, the league title pretty much is on the line tonight when you look at it that way. The remaining schedule for our 7-0 Piqua Indians, technically 6-0, but the league has us at 7-0. We play Tipp City tonight, Butler at home next week on the 15th, and close the year out at Stebbins on October the 22nd. Again, tonight is a big one. If we can get through this one, I believe 10-0 is probably in our sights.
I would say 10-0 is definitely in the sights. If you look at the results with Butler and Stebbins on their schedule, Stebbins got out to a quick start, but again, opponents weren't difficult.
Yeah.
So now they've kind of come back to earth. Butler not having a great year again. They're kind of Midland to below average. So I think that if it's going to happen, if Piqua is going to have that loss, potentially, it would have to be tonight in the regular season.
This is a reminder as well that all sports broadcasts this season will be delayed on our YouTube page and posted for the public to view immediately following the end of the games. As of right now, we have Stebbins on our television schedule. Again, we'll keep everybody updated with that one and let everybody know once we get close. So let's take a look at some of the scores from around the league in Week 7. We had Xenia taking on Butler. Xenia wins that one 40-34. Tipp City 31, Troy 16. Stebbins shutting out Fairborn 38-0. Sydney beats West Carrollton 36-6, and obviously we beat Greenville 49-0. That Xenia Butler score to me was a little surprising.
Well, I think that's a little bit of Xenia being overrated and a little bit of Butler maybe being a little bit underrated, but I still think, again, people are kind of going back to the mean.
Yes.
There's a lot of average football teams in this league. So for Piqua, Tipp is a good measuring stick, but being the third, they're third in Region 12, which is a difficult region. The only game they've lost is against Bellbrook versus Piqua, Region 8, another difficult region, being second. So I don't think you could ask for a better matchup this week anywhere in the state of Ohio.
No, it's going to be a huge one. Let's take a look at some of the stat comparisons and key players from our Greenville game. We had 18 first downs, 391 total yards. Brady Uhl was 11 for 13 with 205, 4 total touchdowns, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground. Josiah Medley just carried the ball 7 times for 121 yards with 3 total touchdowns, 2 on the ground and 1 receiving. Corey Miller, big game, 4 catches, 48 yards. Jashawn Roberts, 2 catches for 88 yards. And again, the one thing that still sticks out at me, Brian, 12 penalties for 178 yards.
Like I've said before, and I think I have to, those penalties will cost you in big games.
Yeah.
Now, against Greenville, where you're by far outmatched the opponent, not going to hurt you that much. Obviously, I mean, from the stats, they had all those penalties and they still won 49-0. But if they go and do that against Tipp, that could flip an entire game, and they could be looking back going, man, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
And you want to get away from those penalties this week for sure.
And the other thing, too, that I want to take a look at, we didn't have very many third down situations on ourselves. We were 1 of 5 on third downs. I mean, we got to get better, obviously, on third down as well, I think.
Well, for sure. Here's the thing. I think you're going to see a lot of you're going to figure out a lot about Piqua this week because we haven't really been challenged. It's been a pretty breezy ride. Not a lot of difficult games, not a lot of difficult situations. This week, probably going to be put in some more difficult situations, and you'll have to see how we handle that. Now, last year was kind of the same way, but we handled it pretty well early. That second playoff game got away from us a little bit.
Yeah.
So, they're going to have to show what they're all about this week.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. Let's take a moment here to thank our sponsors from the Indian Nation Station for the 21-22 school year. We'd like to thank Kathy Henny, Elite ETC, Dick Lumpkins Auto Body, Morris Comfort Systems, Harmony Systems, Little Caesars, Edison State, Employee Bridge Resource MFG, Dr. Littlejohn, and the Crayex Corporation. Again, thank you for all your support for the 21-22 school year. Well, another big week around the league. Couple good games going on. We got 3-4 Butler hosting 2-5 Greenville. 3-4 Troy hosts West Carrollton, who's 0-7. Xenia at Stebbins. That'll be a pretty decent game, I believe. 5-2 Xenia, 4-3 Stebbins. 0-7 Fairborn travels to 3-4 Sydney, and obviously our game Piqua hosting Tipp City. Besides the Piqua Tipp game, what game on here do you think will probably be the best one to go and watch?
I definitely would say the Xenia Stebbins game. Now, would I say that's because those teams are great? No, but I would say those are the most evenly matched besides our game.
Yeah.
And I think that Stebbins could easily win that game because Xenia's kind of fallen back a little bit. They're kind of headed in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
With barely beating Butler, and now you're looking at them kind of struggling a little bit. And then Stebbins, one thing I will say is I will probably take the over on that one because if you're looking at two teams that can score a lot of points and give up a lot of points, there's going to be a lot of points out there on that game.
I agree. I think that one's going to be a huge one to watch. Butler-Greenville might be a good game, though, too, Brian.
Yeah, if Greenville can get the running game rolling, I think they could easily beat Butler as well. So.
Yeah, Greenville did run the ball pretty well against us decently. They had 35 attempts for 136 total yards, but they only averaged 3.9 yards a carry. All right, let's get into the matchup we want to talk about. I know you have all the information. It's a huge matchup with league title implications on the line for both teams. The 6-1 Tipp City Red Devils are coming into town to take on the 7-0 Piqua Indians. Piqua, number 1 in total offense. Tipp City, number 2. Piqua, number 1 in overall defense. Tipp City, number 3. Brian, what can we expect tonight?
Well, here's what you're going to see. You're going to see a pretty even rushing game. Both teams are top. Piqua's got 258 yards per rushing, which is per game, which is number 1 in the league. Number 2 in the league is Tipp at 256. One thing that separates Piqua from Tipp is the ability to pass it a little more. Tipp passes, but they throw a little short passes, short. We've seen a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I think that is manageable. Piqua is a big play offense. They have a lot of deep threats. They spread it around, and I think that if Uhl can get those passing yards in, I think that will separate Piqua from Tipp. That the rest of it's pretty even. I mean, these teams come in here pretty close, and everything. With Tipp's only lost to Bellbrook way back in week 1. I mean, they're pretty evenly matched. What's odd about this series is we are only 16 miles apart, and they've only played just over 10 times in the history of these schools, which dates back a long way.
Yeah, it does.
So it's a pretty odd. Now, one note, Piqua has outscored Tipp 42-3 over the last 6 quarters in this series. So I'm sure Tipp's going to be locked in. The question is, will they be able to execute enough? I mean, Piqua has only given up 20 points this year.
That is
which
true.
is pretty incredible.
And they have 2 straight shutouts as well, 77-0 against Fairborn and then the 49-0 against Greenville. Last year's game, if we go back a little bit from that Tipp game, we pretty much controlled the entire game.
Yeah, I never really felt like last year Tipp was ever in the game.
No.
And it was just, Piqua did, and that was at their place. It was supposed to be a similar game to this, kind of, crescendo, and Piqua just really bullied them a little bit. Kept it on the ground, ran it whenever they wanted, didn't have a lot of trouble. I do feel like Tipp is a little bit of a different team this year. A lot of their top players, almost all their key players are seniors.
Yeah.
They do have the quarterback, Liam Bronsky, who is a junior, but then they've got 2 really good running backs who are both seniors. They've got a couple wide receivers that are all seniors that can, a lot of ways, match what Piqua has. Now, do they throw the ball as well? Not quite, but Piqua's got to be on there, be ready for those short passes. Can't let them get away on those screens.
So really the biggest keys that I'm getting from what you're telling me is Piqua's defense has got to step up. We got to be able to get stops. We got to be able to get the 3 and outs. And our offense has got to continue to make big plays.
And those big plays cannot be held back by penalties.
Yes.
Because if you cannot afford to have an 80-yard touchdown run brought back because of holding or a late hit, just some discipline issues. And that can change a whole game. Now, taking care of the football, Piqua's been pretty good with that.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate, you never know. Turnovers could turn the game as well. I mean, in this type of game where it's kind of a toss-up, you got to hold on to that ball.
And a huge implications for a league title. Last year they both played for a league title. This year they're both pretty much playing for a league title again. Winner's going to probably win the league. It's huge. I mean, this is probably Piqua. Like you said, we're going to find out what we know about Piqua this week.
I'll tell you what, there should be a heck of a crowd with homecoming going on all at the same time. You've got a lot of people back in town. The people from Tipp have a short trip here. So I think that's going to be a heck of a crowd. It should be an electric atmosphere.
Anything else that you would like to add about this game, about this week before we get out of here, Brian?
Tipp has not beat Piqua since 2015 in the playoffs.
Yep.
So they're going to be they've had this one circled for a while.
And another news about the playoffs, we were number 3 in Region 8, and we did get bumped up to number 2, which is pretty good. If we're playing at 15, I think we have Sydney right now again.
Yeah, a lot of lower to Midland teams from the NVL are down there. Mm-hmm. So we're probably going to get a rematch on team that we probably now. Side note: there's an outside chance we could end up playing Belmont if they won out. Mm-hmm. I personally would not like that matchup because that was pretty ugly the first time.
Yeah.
And the only reason Belmont's in the conversation is because their schedule's not so difficult.
Yeah.
So I would like to see a rematch with Sydney or something along those lines. That would probably make for at least more fun to watch and more interesting than a game against Belmont.
Well, with that being said, we're going to get out of here. Again, remember, students, it is Bill Neese night. Come dressed in your best Bill Neese gear that you have at home. Also, we have the homecoming court that will be coming out at halftime, and we will get the Queen announcement on the broadcast that you can watch delayed after the game. The link will be posted on our Facebook page and on the Piqua Athletics Twitter page. Well, it's going to be a big one, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you all come out and watch this game tonight. For Brian Gillespie, I am AJ Ganger. Stay tuned for the game coming up right now with Tom Michaels and Brian Gillespie on the call. Go Piqua and beat Tipp.